Lessons from NFL Week 8 blowouts. Taylor, Barkley, Kraft star. Sunday of Week 8 of the 2025 NFL season won't go down in the history of football as one of the greatest weekends ever. After a 27-point blowout of the Vikings by the Chargers on Thursday night, all but one of Sunday's games were decided by double digits, with a Jets-Bengals shootout as a lone exception. Including that Vikings-Chargers game, 11 of the 12 games we've seen so far in Week 8 have been decided by 10 or more points. That 92% clip is the highest for any week going back through 1990. If the games felt like they were missing something, they were starting quarterbacks. 8 of the 24 teams that have played so far in Week 8 weren't able to start their preferred quarterback. 6 of the 7:1 p.m. Eastern Time games had at least one backup QB taking the field to start. And Washington's Marcus Mariota will become the 9th backup to start this week when he takes the field on Monday Night Football against the Chiefs. Football usually isn't this simple, but teams starting backup quarterbacks facing teams starting a preferred quarterback went 1-5 this week, with Tyler Huntley's victory against the Bears as the outlier. You get the idea. It wasn't a very fun weekend of games to discuss. At the same time, there were little nuggets and moments to enjoy, even if the games weren't very competitive. Let's find and celebrate the fun pieces from each of Sunday's games. A great performance, a cool play, a return to form. There's at least one takeaway to savor from all 11 matchups. Let's start with a guy who might be the most dominant player in football right now. Jonathan Taylor goes for 3 touchdowns, again. Ho-hum. Yes, the performance was against a Titans team without star defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons, who might be the only reason people outside of the Nashville area even turn on Tennessee tape most weeks. But when you have 4 3-touchdown games by the midway point of the season and the rest of the NFL has 8 combined, you're doing something right. After he torched the Titans for 174 scrimmage yards and 3 scores on just 14 touches, Taylor can make the case that he's in the middle of a historic stretch of football. He has scored 10 touchdowns over his past 4 games. That's the first time a player has scored 10 or more times over a 4-game span since 2015, and Taylor is just a 15th player in NFL history to make it to 10 scores in 4 weeks of action. In addition to having 5 more TDS than anybody else in the NFL 14, Taylor has recorded 3.9% of all the league's rushing yardage by running backs this season, 850. Since 2002, that's the 6th highest rate recorded by any back through 8 weeks. And a league best 31% of his touches are turning into first downs or touchdowns. More than the numbers. What truly signifies a special season for me is seeing how a player can make other NFL players look foolish. Great backs having spectacular seasons, like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry a year ago, have a way of making the angles and calculations in other players' heads go haywire. Defenders are in a panic before they even get to the open field, and melt down once they do get there. Watch Taylor's 80-yard touchdown run from Sunday and you see the Titans' defense almost get into a panic as he breaks through the first-level defenders. The Colts' offensive line, which has done an excellent job of blocking for Taylor across all kinds of different run concepts this season, had no problem creating a hole on a pin or pull sweep, with star guard Quentin Nelson getting to the edge and driving cornerback Darrell Baker Jr. all the way to the sideline. But once Taylor breaks into the open field, Tennessee's defenders simply have no hope. Safety Xavier Woods starts moving to a spot where he thinks he'll have a shot at pushing Taylor out of bounds, only to find that Taylor is about 3 yards past that spot once he gets there. Backside safety Amani Hooker is the last hope, but even with Taylor slowed down by Woods' tackle attempt, the Colts running back is way too fast and prevents Hooker from getting close enough to attempt a diving tackle. And sure, the Titans' defense isn't going to terrify opposing offenses, but Taylor has been doing this all season. He made superstar safety Derwin James Jr. miss on the first of his 3 touchdowns against the Chargers last week, and then broke down Tony Jefferson's angle in the middle of the field on his 3rd score. Taylor also shook Brandon Jones to the ground in the open field on his 68-yard run against the Broncos. It's one thing for a speedster like peak Tyreek Hill to do this to NFL defensive backs. Taylor is 226 pounds. Simply put, Taylor is the surest thing in football right now. There has never really been a reason to think something was missing or lacking in Barkley's game that was leading the reigning Offensive Player of the Year to struggle in 2025. While Barkley didn't have a single 20-yard run before Sunday, he did have a 47-yard touchdown catch against Denver, so it was clear there wasn't some issue with his explosiveness. The Eagles' offensive line has been banged up and hasn't been nearly as dominant as it was in 2024, but the real explanation was probably just variance. Barkley ran incredibly hot in 2024 and had maybe been a little unlucky to not have the right hole open up at the right time so far in 2025. As it turned out, all it took was a game against his former employer, who was the league's worst EPA per play against designed runs this season, to get Barkley going. He racked up his first 2 explosive rushes of the season. The one that will stick with Eagles fans is hope that the real Barkley is coming back as a 65-yarder on the opening possession of the game. The Eagles are running duo here, where they are hoping to get double teams at the line of scrimmage, climb to the second level, and get Barkley one-on-one against a defender. The line does an immaculate job of blocking this up against an overmatched Giants front. Barkley has to decide whether he wants to hit this into the open gap directly in front of his face or sneak out the backside to take on safety Tyler Nubin. With Jordan Mailata sealing off Kayvon Thibodeau and Landon Dickhausen climbing to take away Darius Moisau, Barkley doesn't even need to address a Giant defender until he gets to Nubin, who has had halfbacks run away from him for big gains multiple times this season. It's not a fair fight. Devonta Smith has his hands up to celebrate before Barkley even makes it past Nubin and hits midfield. This was the running game the Eagles expected to have in 2025 after everything they showed in 2024, at least for one play. Barkley then added a 28-yard run on a counterplay later in the day, though that was his final carry of the game, as he felt a groin issue start to pop up at the end of the run. The 3-time Pro Bowler said after the win that he would have been able to come back in and play if the score had been closer. The Eagles were likely wise to sit their star back, especially with Tank Bigsby also joining the 100-yard club on 9 carries as Barkley's primary backup. As much as this was about Barkley re-establishing his confidence, this might also have been about convincing the offensive line that it can be the same dominant unit we saw a year ago. Before Sunday, carries by Eagles backs were expected to gain an average of only 3.5 yards per run by NFL Next Gen Stats model, the 3rd worst mark in the league. Only the Texans and Browns were worse. Last season, carries by Eagles running backs